I'm joined now by Lani Elliot, who lived herself through an abusive relationship and is now committing part of her life to helping educate other people so that they can make better choices and potentially avoid situations that can turn into abuse and violence like we saw in the Hannah Leffler case. Lani, tell me what you do. You go into schools and you are helping to educate children about the emotional aspect of relationships.
Yeah, I think it's really important that kids be educated on relationship violence and dating violence. And I think that if they have that relationship knowledge from the get-go, they can make smarter decisions going into and not just dating relationships, but relationships throughout their life. So relationships with their friends, with their parents, with bosses, right? With like all of their relationships. It's really, really helpful when they have that kind of information at hand and know how to recognize the early warning signs of abuse and they're able to do something with that knowledge.
What is some of the information that's missing that you see when you get into the classroom and start talking with young people about relationships, things they don't quite understand at that age?
Kids don't often realize that they not only have the potential to become victims, but they also have the potential to become perpetrators. And everyday things that they do, they may not recognize as relationship violence, or abuse. So things like as simple as going through someone's social media account, looking through someone's cell phone, looking through someone's callers list, searching through their emails, things like that they think are, normal everyday things that couples do to one another. Those things are not okay. And it's about recognizing boundaries and respecting someone's boundaries and knowing that it's not okay when someone does that to you. So,
what's the difference between love and being controlling? Because you say some of them will say, well, that's what you do in a relationship. So how do you tell them to identify the difference?
The huge difference is respect. So if someone loves you, right, they're not going to be trying to control you, and they're not going to be telling you who you can and can't be friends with, and they're not going to be telling you who you can and can't be talking to, or where you can and cannot go. They're not going to be attempting to control different aspects of your life, right? They're going to have the respect for you to allow you to do the things that allow you to grow, right? And control is a very different thing. So when someone is trying to control you, they may start, by isolating you from your friends. They may start telling you what you can and can't wear. And they would do that subtly, right? Things like by criticizing the way that you look, right? Criticizing your outfits, things like that. So there's like little subtle things that they could be doing that you may not recognize are abuse in a relationship. So I think that when kids have that knowledge, they really can make smarter choices in their relationship. And if they can get that from the beginning, then they have the ability to say, no, this isn't okay, and this is not what I'm willing to accept. And if they can say no right from the beginning and set those boundaries, it makes for healthier relationships in the long run.
And what about bystanders? In the case of Hannah Leffler, there was a community of kids that had some awareness. They just didn't know how this would end, but they had some awareness about some of the tactics that were being used by the killer in advance of this happening. So what's the advice to those people that witness some of these things happen that are moments of control and moments of abuse?
I think the sad reality is when you see it happening, especially among kids, sometimes what happens is they think that this isn't real, or this is, this may just be a game, this is fantasy. They don't recognize the seriousness of the situation. They remain silent simply because they don't want to get involved. There's a whole myriad of reasons for why they wouldn't want to get involved. But the reality is that quite often people's lives are at stake. Right? And people's safety is certainly at stake. And when you see something like that happening, you cannot be silent. And even if you're not telling the potential victim, you need to speak to someone. You need to tell an adult, whether it's a teacher, whether it's your mother, whether it's a counselor. You need to talk to an adult, because we cannot remain silent on issues like this. For as long as we remain silent, we will never ever be able to break that cycle of violence. So we have to be more than a bystander. We simply have to.
We have to be brave.
We have to be brave.
Thanks, Lani.
You're welcome.